Good morning. Man, how y'all doing? I don't get opportunities to kick it much, so y'all got to talk to me. Relax. When I was presented with this opportunity to do Creative Mornings, I think I was chilling with my wife, and I told her, and I said, nah, I don't think I'm be able to do this. Coat drive season, you know, so much going on in my life. I don't think I can do this. She's like, you should do it. You got to do it. It's a cool thing. And, I didn't know anything about it, but she knew all about it. And I was just like, I don't know. Normally when I speak, it's purpose driven. I like to focus on the young people. And I said, this isn't my thing. They gave me a list of the themes. I wasn't feeling none of them. Nah, I ain't going to do it. And then my wife was like, all right, you need to start pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. Kind of challenged me a little bit. And I think it was a couple of days I came back and I texted her and I said, I'm going to go ahead and do it. She was like, good. So, but the theme of being invisible stood out to me. And so let me give a disclaimer. I'm probably not as prepared this morning as I should be because of the very reason I initially didn't want to do it, just because life has been nonstop. The holidays are always tough. We've lost a lot of loved ones in our family, and so the holidays are heavy. But then we're dealing with our coat drive, and then I got a new job in the mayor's office to keep me kind of busy, a little busy. And so just finished the Christmas album and had to do a poem for the MLK Day celebration, and I didn't think I had the capacity to do this. And then I prayed about it, and God said, I got you. And so I'll be honest with you. Normally in spaces like this, when I get to speak on things like this, I like to speak about other people. I pride myself in attempting to be a voice for people who may feel like they don't have one. And so whenever I get a mic, I want to represent for them. And so when I thought about invisible, obviously the first thing popped in my head maybe was black women. Being a girl dad, being a mama's boy, having a beautiful wife, I know firsthand what black women deal with in this community and in this country each and every day. They're the most disrespected and unseen individuals on planet Earth. And seeing firsthand what they deal with, I said, maybe I could come in here and talk about that. Maybe I could talk about the Nigerian girls who were kidnapped and it barely even made news. And then I thought about, what if Breonna Taylor was Coach Cal's daughter, or maybe Kylie Jenner? I wonder if the outcome would have been a little different. So I thought maybe I'd come in here and talk about that. Or what about our brown brothers and sisters, right? Our Hispanic population in Lexington, who's already dealing with a fear factor from the system, dealing with a language barrier. And being a resident of Lexington my entire life, I feel bad, heartbroken, that it took me until age 35 to know that there are 2 trailer parks predominantly occupied by our Hispanic population that a lot of people don't even know about. They're almost purposely hidden. I thought about coming in here and talking about that. But I'm going to be honest with you. I ain't talking about none of that today. I want to talk about me. How even though my name and my hat might be very, very recognizable in Lexington, each and every day I walk and I wake up and I live feeling like I'm invisible. I kid you not. I only have 18 to 25 minutes, and this is going to be like the song called Fancy by The Dream. We got any Dream fans in here? If you've never heard the song Fancy, 90% of the song is the build-up. And then he gonna hit you over the head with that last 10%. And it's not a lot, but the blessing in the song is the build-up. And so today, I'm gonna talk about feeling invisible and why I feel invisible, but it's gonna be at the very end, because I feel like the message is going to be in the build-up. So if it's cool with y'all, can y'all walk with me? All right, let's talk about it. To me, and this is my opinion, I don't know anything, I don't speak for everybody, but to me, your uniqueness, your individuality, your purpose is the most valuable thing that you have. That is something nobody can take away from you. At least that's how I was raised. Now, I'm not throwing my spiritual beliefs and religion on anybody, but for me, I feel like God created each of us to do something that nobody else can do. And even if they can do it, they can't do it the way you do it. And they're not going to be in the spaces he put you in. And so all of us have a unique purpose. It's what me and my wife talk about each and every day. People will see us and say, oh, y'all a power couple. No, we are purpose partners. Because we understand the power of living in your uniqueness. And to me, there's humanity in that, right? That's where your human is within your purpose. And so that's just how I was raised. I always use the metaphor, and I'm going to switch it up a little bit today, but I always use the metaphor of sports. You know, when you look at a basketball team, there's positions on a team because there's so many things that got to be executed for you to win. It's a whole bunch. You got the point guard who doesn't really like to shoot the ball. He's not really the tallest person on the court, but he's like the little coach on the floor. He game planning. He mapping it all out, right? He's strategic. He can get all his teammates in positions where they can win. You got to have that person. But then you also got to have a two guard who ain't trying to map nothing out. You hear me? He trying to shoot. Give me the ball so I can put it in the basket. But you got to have points to win, right? To win the game. And so you need somebody who's just unconscious, just gets the ball and lets it fly. But then you also got to have somebody who can defend the paint, somebody who can grab rebounds. You got to have somebody who's a stretch, who can guard a point guard, but they can go in the post and guard a four, see? And when all of those different players with completely different skill sets and jobs come together, that's what makes a team great. I believe the same can be said for community. All of us have something that we do, that we are great at, that our community needs in order to win, in order to succeed. I believe that, right? I believe that. But what happens when you're living in a society where the very things that make you feel valuable, make you feel purpose-driven, enables you to see other people's humanity, what happens when that is no longer valuable? Can I walk around a little bit? They told me I got to stay within these little markings. I told them, man, I said, I'm used to being on stage and rocking the crowd. I got to move around a little bit. It's odd. It's weird, man. I'm old enough to remember pagers. I'm old enough to remember my late father, get mad because he would try to use the phone, but when he picked up the phone, he heard this weird sound because I was on AOL. So I'm old enough to remember life before the internet, but then I'm also young enough to where I've acquiesced a little bit and I can understand and use social media as well. But one thing that's strange about society, and I have to blame the internet for this a little bit, is that we're losing our uniqueness. I know technology is progressing, but where's the innovation? Where's the purpose? I feel like we're losing the very thing that makes us human. And those are the very values that I came up upon. So I'm struggling right now. I give you a prime example. The beautiful thing about hip hop music, right, is that it was organically diverse. This is pre-internet. And the reason it was organically diverse is because the music was indicative of the community in which it came from. You knew when you heard East Coast music. You know why? Because you heard it and you felt like you was in a concrete jungle. It's like Timberlands magically appeared on your feet. It was the Harlem Renaissance influence, the Nation of Islam that was prevalent in all of the boroughs in New York. So the knowledge was in the music. Poetry and spoken word was huge in New York. So there was a focus on lyrical content. So when you heard a Nas, a Jay, a Big, he from New York. But the same goes for Cali, right? You knew when you heard some West Coast music back in the late 80s, early 90s. Weed was flowing a little different out there on the left coast. Gang culture was heavy, right? You had the Bloods and Crips and Latin Kings. That wasn't in the East Coast. And when you heard the Bloods and the Crips, you knew that music was on the West Coast. It had funk in the music. Weather was a little nicer. And so when you heard the music, it sounded like it was from the West Coast. Same for the Dirty South. There was a bluegrass, a country influence in the South. And so there was more melodies. There was a little bit more harmony and singing within the flow and the rhyme patterns. The accents were different. We talked about different things. It was more struggle because we were dealing with more racism in the South. It was beautiful. Music was diverse because it had no choice, because you grew up making music based off your surroundings, but then came the internet. I'll never forget the first time I heard Fetty Wap. Don't act like y'all don't know Fetty Wap. Y'all wasn't always saved. Don't do that. You was singing about your trap queen. We're not going to do that. And then there was this one-hit wonder named Designer. He had a song called Panda. You remember that? Remember that beat? I said, man, I'll never forget this, man. I remember saying, man, Atlanta's still killing the game. South got a chokehold on hip-hop right now, man. These two are killing. Now, I watched the interview, and they said Fetty Wap was from Jersey, and Designer was from Brooklyn. So what? One of the interviewers asked Fetty Wap, they said, you know, you kind of got an ATL kind of vibe. And he said, yeah, you know, growing up, you know, on the internet, you know, we could access everything. I didn't just have my surroundings. We were looking up to Young Thug and Future. I liked their music and what they were doing. I used to look at them on YouTube and the internet, and so I wanted to be like them. It's kind of where we at in society. We're not unique anymore. We're not organically representing our environment. We can take social cues from the internet, from the other side of the world. We can take aesthetics, even accents, and we can adopt them as our own. But what is that doing to our humanity? When's the last time you got on Instagram and said, let me tell you how many people I lead? No, you talk about how many followers you have. On TikTok, we are all doing the same challenges. Everything is uniformed. So for a brother like me that was raised, that my power was in my uniqueness, when everything I do in life is based off trying to find purpose, where do I fit in a world where that is now devalued? Where free thought and true innovation, they label you with words like crazy. I used to be one of those people until I had to look in the mirror. What the heck is wrong with Kanye West? Dude nuts. Or maybe he just is operating in free thought. I had a couple notes, but you know what? We ain't gonna do that. We gonna stay right here. If I told you that I had social anxiety and I hated talking to people, would you believe me? Because I do. For whatever reason, God has gave me a gift to get in front of people and talk, primarily young people. But what you don't know is that my first week on the job, I literally almost went in the corner and cried because I had to go to a staff meeting. That is a fact. I told the mayor that. And she laughed at me. And I said, no, I'm serious. Because I struggle in social situations. I'm socially awkward. A lot of people maybe in this room think I'm a jerk, maybe standoffish. It's not that. It's not my heart. I struggle talking to people. But nobody knows that because I'm Devine Carama, and so oftentimes I feel invisible. My life is nonstop. My wife, who is the director of Black Achievers, life is nonstop. And so when we go out on a rare date night, it's her and I for a change. It's not me talking to a mother who has lost her son. It is not me trying to organize a coat drive. I'm not focused on Lunar Library. I'm not running around doing my job. I want to focus on my wife. But then somebody runs up and literally interrupts my wife in the middle of a sentence because I'm Devine Carama and they feel like they can. Because to a lot of people, I'm nothing but a cause. But I'm a person first. So I feel invisible. My family dynamics are interesting. I love my stepdaughter, Carson. But as much as I love her, I'll never be her actual father. And so there's a connection with her that I yearn and want that I may never get. She loves me and I love her, but sometimes to her I feel invisible. I've suffered a lot of loss the last couple of years, but my mom has suffered even more. My mom is a beautiful person. My mom has lost her husband, the only house she's had for the last 20-some years, several siblings, a granddaughter. But when I go to my mom's house, sometimes I want to be that little boy, and I just want to cry, lay in her arms, and say, Mom, I'm hurting. But I don't get that opportunity too much because she's hurting too. I love my mom. She's a great woman, but sometimes when I go over there and I just want to be that little boy, sometimes I feel invisible. Trying to be strong for my wife and my kids and my family. Mourning and going through so many things. But still feeling like as a man, you got to be the rock that everybody else leans on. But what about me? So sometimes I feel invisible. Dealing with microaggressions, man, it was hard during the pandemic. There's so many things as a black man that I wish, as a black person, I wish I could explain and make it make sense to you. You would never understand. The way you looked at in the grocery store, the way people talk to you and marginalize and minimize you. And then we had to throw this mask on and it just made it 10 times worse. It's just the microaggressions that you deal with on the daily. It don't matter who I am. I walked to a scene of a shooting a couple weeks ago. And that's my job. You know, I work in the mayor's office, director of One Lexington Violence Reduction Initiative. My job is to be that liaison between our public safety and our community, and me walking on the scene, seeing a father and a mother scared, sad, hurt because their son was shot, and me trying to calm them down and do my job. And some law enforcement officers giving me a hard time. And I was quickly reminded it don't matter what my job title is. I'm still black, man. So even in my new cushy job, oftentimes I feel invisible. We just got done doing our coat drive, and it's amazing how social media works, right? Because, you'll put a post up and say, hey, man, we need help. Man, we need some coats. We need y'all to come help us deliver. And everybody will post and comment on that post. Everybody. Oh, I got you. Devine, I'm down for the cause. Black fist emoji in the comments. I got you. But then when I inbox them, it's not the same energy, even if they respond at all. Everything looked good on social media. But the majority of the work is still done by me and my wife and a few volunteers. So I'm learning, because I was confused, I'm learning that people are posting and commenting on what you put on Facebook, not because they truly and authentically want to help, but they want to be seen. And in their fight to be seen, they don't understand, and that makes me feel invisible. We hit a record high of homicides in Lexington, 35. 86% of those are black males. People don't understand in a city, and we're still kind of a big town, right, in a lot of regards, But the black community pretty much birthed from 2 neighborhoods in Lexington. We only make 14-15% of the population. And so even though we can look at other cities and say, 30-35 homicides is not that bad, but when it's primarily impacting the black community, it is shaking our community up. If we don't know personally the person that was shot and killed, we know somebody that knows them. We went to school with them. We went to church with them. And the impact, the residual impact, now I'm talking about mental health. I'm going a lot of different places. The residual impact that the homicides in Lexington is having on the black community can't be quantified by numbers. So oftentimes I feel invisible. I'll close with this. I know I'm getting close to my time, if I haven't passed it already. Try being a progressive black man in Lexington, Kentucky, where systemic oppression, the remnants of Willie Lynch, is crippling the black community. The other day, and I'm not going to say his name because he's not reflective of the comment that he made, but it's the perfect example of where I want to go. And I don't know if you've heard of this music competition called Versus, right? Where 2 artists will compete hit for hit on stage, right? And it's called Versus, different artists. And so recently there were 2 Lexington artists that'll be competing in a Versus, right? And I was laughing and joking in the comments. I said, man, I got about 1,000 songs, man. I want to do a Versus, even though I never do one. So I want to do a Versus. And the guy that was on live commented, he said, man, Devine, don't nobody want to hear that miracle, lyrical, schmiracle. Man, you can be dropping too much knowledge, man. I'm great fall asleep listening to you. Don't nobody want to hear that, man. And it was all jokes, and I know him personally. I know he didn't mean anything by it, but that is indicative, though. That thought, that train of thought is indicative of still being mentally enslaved. There's only so many of us allowed at the table. There's only so many of us here. And so what happens is the few that are there, that are here, often fight over the scraps that remain in order to be seen. But another part of that is those that are trying to maybe push and elevate the consciousness a little bit, maybe trying to change the status quo, we're demonized by our own. Just imagine being constantly demonized and tore down by the very people you would die for. Then obviously you're dealing with the other side. So it's this crunch. Best way I could put it is this. In a Facebook post, I kid you not, I was called a nigger by a white person and an Uncle Tom by a black person in the same post. So it don't matter who it is. Sometimes I walk around, I feel like I'm invisible. Everybody is telling me, Devine, you should run for politics, man. You should run for city council, run for mayor. You should do this, you should do that. And I'll close with this. And I never really want to say never because we'll have our plans and God has his. But I'll close with this. I ain't never running for nothing. You know why? Because a lot of people within my community work see me as a bridge. Maybe somebody who could bring people together. Somebody that is still free of thought. I have a Black Lives Matter sign and an I Support Lexington Police sign in my front yard. What's wrong with that? Why can't I support my brothers and sisters that are on the beat doing a good job, but then also want accountability for the system in which they enforce? See, we live in an era where politics and society says you either got to be on that side and you got to be on that side, and it eliminates free thought. And if you dare think on your own and be free in thought and emotion, they label you crazy or an Uncle Tom or worse. I'm not trying to be a bridge. I just am who my mother and my father raised me to be. But in that purpose of being a bridge in the community, that just means in politics I wouldn't have a base. No, I'm good. Devine Carama, hip-hop artist, community activist, always on the news. He's Lexington famous. He got a beautiful wife, beautiful family. He's doing great things with his coat drive. He loves the kids. Just remember that I am so much more than what you think. I'm not a cause. I'm not a narrative. I'm not a perception. I'm not an influencer. I'm a man, a black man. I'm a father. I'm a son. I'm a Christian. And 9 times out of 10, when you see me in public and I have my head down, or I don't make eye contact, or I struggle connecting and networking with people, it's not because I'm a jerk. It's because more times than not, I feel invisible. That's my time. Thank you.